Mr. President, this month, during this year's first open hearing for the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, national security and military leaders gave a worldwide threat assessment of our country and of our way of life. They described threats to our homeland, to our key allies, to our trading routes, to data privacy, and to our infrastructure, including crucial space assets. There was a common theme in the concerns that we heard from our military and national security leaders, but also from what I've heard, these things are confirmed by Kansans and Americans. The People's Republic of China is our greatest foreign threat to democracy, to our peace, and to our prosperity. At no time, this is not just a throwaway line, at no time in my life have I been more concerned about the enormity of the challenges our country faces. The Chinese Communist Party, led by President Xi Jinping, the most powerful leader of the CCP since Chairman Mao, is on a determined, calculated mission to overtake the United States in fields that will shape the 21st century. Beijing is intent that rather than the United States of America influencing world events in a way that favors and bends toward our principles of free and open world, they want China's authoritarian model, and they want the world bent their way. China and its supporters would have the world move away from the principles that have advanced global prosperity toward the basic belief that underwrite an autocratic authority where the weaker are destined to be ruled by the stronger. We have seen this with China's political, economic, and direct provision of non-lethal support to Russia as Russia wages an unprovoked war on Ukraine. China operates the world's most advanced techno-surveillance state that consolidates its power by monitoring, controlling, and subjecting their people. And China is engaged in an ambitious, expansive plan to export this model and the means of accomplishing it beyond their borders. The threat is to us and to those like us and to the rest of the world. They want media, big tech, sports teams, and businesses to toe the CCP line, to be ignorant of, or at least silent, on the gross violations of basic human decency against the Uyghurs, against Hong Kong, and elsewhere across their country in response to COVID. The CCP pursues a world, including America, under the thumb of their power. In a speech in April of 2020, Xi noted his intentions to increase global supply chain dependencies on China, with an aim of controlling key supply chains and being able to then use those supply chain dependencies to threaten and to ultimately cut off foreign countries during a crisis. As of the latest worldwide threat assessment, China produces 40% of the world's key vaccines and medical ingredients. And by 2025, it is estimated that it is on track to control 65% of the import lithium-ion battery market used in phones and cars and almost every other device and appliance, and fabrication of 1 in 5 semiconductors in the world. China does not want the 21st century to be another American-led century. They want the century to be one that witnesses the replacement of American leadership with the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party. 2/3 of global trade flows by ocean through the regions around the South Pacific, what the Department of Defense calls the Indo-Pacific. The goods that Americans export and the imports that we depend upon requires a safe and reliable trade zone. For decades, the United States military, at great expense, have kept the oceans and airways safe and open. By those means, Americans have kept the global commons safe for the benefit of our own peace and prosperity, and for the benefit of the world. When America is militarily strong and our sovereignty secure, we can shape and influence the terms of international commerce, international behavior. The way we do business is the standard, and that reflects our principles and leaves our fingerprints on the world. Maintaining a strong U.S. economy requires trade agreements with partners who adhere to agreed-upon rules ranging from market access to the protection of intellectual property. Our failure to participate in such agreements or update them to meet the realities of the 21st century opens the door to greater Chinese influence. This is a call for this administration and this Congress to react and respond differently than we have done to date on trade and trade agreements. It is our benefit, it is to our benefit, and that of our trading partners to tie more of the world to the U.S. and its economy and reap the benefits of a vibrant international commerce. And a stable Europe in which we coordinate closely with our partners on military and economic challenges is necessary to thwart China's rising influence. America remains a coalescing force in Europe. Yes, I want Europeans to do more in Europe, but America remains a coalescing force, and our contributions have been essential to supporting Ukraine in its defense against Russian aggression. With our continued assistance and an increasing European leadership and resources, Ukraine will be able to continue to push back Russian forces and preserve its sovereignty. A defeat of Ukraine by Russia further emboldens China. Separately, our commitment to NATO. That commitment is, it remains, and must remain resolute, and any threat to NATO territory must be met and will be met decisively. Our intelligence community assesses that it will take years for Russia to rebuild its conventional military capabilities. NATO allies must use this window, this opportunity to strengthen their defenses and assume more responsibility for their security as we necessarily increase support for allies and partners in the Indo-Pacific. It is important for us to be able to pay attention to the Pacific, and we expect and hope our European allies to be able to take a closer look and watch on the issues facing Europe today and in the future. Despite its failures in Ukraine, we cannot ignore that Russia remains a threat. Russia possesses a massive nuclear arsenal, and Moscow has significant cyber, anti-satellite, and underwater capabilities. Strikingly, China views Russia as an essential partner in the struggle against democratic values. As I speak now, President Xi is in Moscow meeting with President Putin, strengthening the relationship in pursuit of offering an alternative to American leadership. And by American, I mean something more than just the country of the United States of America, American values, Americans' care and concern for people around the globe. The threats to American freedom, to world freedom and world security and prosperity are not all challenges we face from foreign militaries. We require vigilance on our border. All states really are border states, and when we fail to enforce this nation's geographic sovereignty, we harm our nation. There is no nation, in fact, without borders. And perhaps there's no greater tragic effect of our current failed border policies than the fentanyl and other drugs sent from China to Mexico coming across our borders. We also must produce and we must manufacture goods here in the United States. The United States cannot be reliant upon our adversaries. We can't hope for something that will be delivered in the future in times of crisis. We have to be reliant on ourselves for our critical supplies of medicine, of food, of technology, and energy. We have to learn from our earlier errors discovered during the COVID pandemic. This includes prioritizing American manufacturing and educating a technically skilled workforce, and that is why we must fully and faithfully implement the CHIPS and Science Act that was signed into law last year. A democratically and economically stronger America will be a more respected America. It's not enough to enlist and maintain the support of wealthy democracies in our vision of a free and open world. Our diplomats must be able to compete to convince countries that have grown skeptical of American leadership that we have not lost our way. As former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, a Kansan, he wrote, quote, "We must better communicate the good that we do." This includes the generosity to countries after natural disasters and our support in fighting global hunger. We know, each of us here and Americans across the country know that our nation faces many challenges. But if we can have the eyes to see the thread that runs through those challenges, we will recognize that we have a determined adversary who is waging a new Cold War. Our domestic disagreements run deep, but the myriad of challenges we face from abroad should help us see the need to work together in this Senate, in this Congress, with this administration, across the country, to work together to urgently address the threats we face. We need to be the democracy that remains the shining light on the hill. We need to send and be the role model nation. And our divisions among ourselves and allegations that divide us only harm our ability to lead in this world, to meet the challenges that we face from our adversaries. We have a great inheritance. This country remains the best place on earth to live. We live in a nation founded on principles, and those principles are of human equality, of the rights of men and women. We understand that the basic rights come from God, not from government, but that government is here and it's instituted for the purpose to secure and preserve those rights. We ought to debate, argue, and discuss everything that our country faces together, but the ultimate outcome has to be one of common purpose, of preserving the freedoms that were created by our founding fathers in a Constitution that is sacred, and making certain that those who have foregone their lives on behalf of us in previous battles, that their honor is preserved and their life that they lost was not lost in vain. When America is strong and secure, we ensure Americans are free and prosperous, and that the entire world has a greater chance to join us, to remain with us in the pursuit of those freedoms and that prosperity. I have a personally renewed determination to work with all of my colleagues to steward the privilege and responsibility that's been bestowed upon me by Kansans and all of us by our fellow citizens, so that this century remains an American century with liberty and human well-being better secured for all around the globe. Mr. President, I yield the floor.